Hey, man. Thanks for coming on.
Glad to be here.
We really appreciate it. You are our first real interview. So stoked that you're here for our little testing and make sure we don't fuck everything up.
Okay, this is fun. So
Yeah.
I enjoy it. Kind of.
Well, you did our interview portion, answered all of our regular questions. And so this is just kind of a follow-up, talk some more crap about, your business and stuff. So you work specifically for the Catastrophe Team of a big insurance company. So I guess when like tornadoes and earthquakes and hurricanes and that stuff come through, that's when you go to work.
That's correct.
Yeah. So what happens when something like that occurs? You just get a phone call and head that way, or how's that kind of operation unfold?
There's a specific group in the, basically they're in employee resources, and they say, okay, there's this much damage, they're going to need this many bodies to send there. So in order to do that, they have what's called a tactical call. And so multi-departments get together, and they, from IT to supplies to lodging to licensing, everything comes together and say, we're going to need this X amount of bodies to show up on this date. Mm-hmm. And that's how it starts. And then it's an email. Everybody gets an email and says you need to report to, say, Kansas City, your travel days tomorrow. Each of our employees have a 24-hour notice-ish to start traveling. Leadership has less than that usually to arrive. And then it gets started. And we'll have, like I said before, orientation meetings on state specifics, maybe some of the different laws involved in that particular state. And then our IT folks will set up, done electronically, claims start getting assigned and people start making schedule inspections.
Seems like for a big disaster, that's kind of a massive tactical response, right? Almost like moving an army of people.
Well, it is. And they used words like deployment and things like that. So it's almost like military. Mm-hmm. And so if you want to think about it, I always use an analogy that we started a brand new office, fully staffed, all the IT overnight.
That's wild.
It starts up. And so people never, from the outside, what about transportation? Is there a shortage in rental cars because of the disaster? Each of the claim specialists drive the company vehicles to get there. Mm-hmm. So what about leadership and all these other outside entities that support operation? Rental cars. What about lodging? Because people may be displaced because their home was destroyed. Mm-hmm. And so have a separate organization or a subcontractor, so to speak, that just does nothing but lodging.
Really? So you have whole teams of people that just handle every aspect of the deployment.
Correct. And so they want us doing claims. But, we send a form in, I need lodging for 10 people. Put those 10 people's name, get an email back, here's where you're staying. So then they take care of any contract issues if we're staying other than a hotel or stuff like that. We work a travel website separate from the lodging one to secure airline travel, rental cars, whatever we may need.
So walk me through the claims process when somebody's house is just destroyed. They submit a claim online, or somebody actually has to go out and inspect all the damage and then do a bunch of paperwork. And how does that all work when somebody's having the worst day of their lives, I imagine?
Sure. So they have different ways. You can call in is one way. You can have an app on your phone. You can report your claim. You can go by your agent and report a claim. And so there's different ways. But once that claim's reported, it comes out to us and says basically the facts, what happened. Home destroyed by a tornado. Then when that claim's assigned to a claim specialist, we then, they make contact voice to voice with that particular person who owns the home and say that here's what your policy is, explain the coverages, and then schedule a time to inspect it. Before they go inspect it, they can pull what's called an Eagle View. It's a satellite service that can pull a picture of the house from a satellite. And they can do it before the tornado. They can pull old data.
Yeah.
So, and it can diagram the roof, guaranteed within an inch, all the different facets. And then that's called a walls report. They can drop the walls and then your structure's there.
That's got to be a pretty recent development with the technology the last like 10 years or something like that. Or has that been around for much longer?
No, it's probably about the last 10 years because When I was a claims specialist, we had to draw all that and figure out with the measuring tape.
Yeah.
That was before laser measures too.
Oh, really?
And now they use laser measuring devices, and I use an app on their phone to take all the pictures. Where when I was there, I was doing Polaroids.
Oh, okay.
So, and nothing was electronic. Everything was paper.
Has that technology just reduced the manpower needed in the day-to-day operations, or do you still need basically the same amount of people?
Same amount of people. Actually, with the litigious environments that we work in, it's increased our more concentration on detail of what we do and added extra steps. So where technology is great, and I never want to go back, it also, the society and the environment we work in requires us to do more work on every single claim that it used to. So it's good that everything, because when I was a claim specialist, I had to use microfiche. Probably most people don't know what that is.
That's older than me, yeah.
Yeah, to go look up portions of the policy.
Oh,
and we
okay.
had one machine in the office. So
Oof.
if you're using it, hurry up.
Yeah.
I need to use that. And so now everything's at your fingertips, right on a laptop. So that's what's really cool.
Nice.
And so,
well, Turtlesmith kind of tries to help small businesses. You work for a large organization, but when they have those disasters, there's some independent people that go out there, right? Some independent claims people who kind of work for themselves that help you guys out on the big disasters.
right, they're independent contractors, and they're paid by, we pay a particular firm, and that firm pays those individuals.
Mm-hmm.
So in essence, in the legal world, we hire the firm, not the individual.
Gotcha.
So that keeps that separation between independent contractor and not. So we do that quite a bit. And also there's quite a few staff folks that go out and do the same job. So it's probably hard to tell the difference. Independent contractors have to say, hey, they're an independent contractor working on behalf of that particular company.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. In your interview, you talked a little bit about different states having like different regulations and stuff like that. Is there some states that are just a disaster? I know here in Oklahoma, we have trouble getting insurance sometimes because of the tornadoes and hail and all that stuff. But are there just real hurdles with certain states?
Yeah, the three states come into mind is California, Louisiana, and Florida.
Yeah.
And it's mostly because of legislation.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it so hard for them to do business. I mentioned earlier that to charge enough premium to remain profitable to handle claims, and people afford it, sometimes don't always all equal out.
Mm-hmm.
And each state, they think they come up with the greatest idea. Well, that idea by itself may be really great, but they haven't thought of all the ripple effect down what it causes. So,
Yeah.
and just the legal environment of those particular states is very challenging. With tort reform, that would probably improve that,
Mm-hmm.
both not only in the insurance world, but also the medical field and all these other organizations, because they're testing and doing extra work just to protect themselves against litigation.
Yeah.
So
Are there some states that are easy to work with that you think is a perfect example of what insurance should be, or they all kind of have their problems?
each of them has their own struggles or issues, but mainly in the Midwest,
Yeah.
it's very easy to do business.
Yeah.
Now, West Coast or East Coast, that's just, and a lot of that comes down to people.
Mm-hmm.
Midwest is more laid back, and they're very patient. On the West or East Coast, they may not be. And also that comes with generational differences. My generation, I'd rather you come and talk to me and shake my hand, where your generation, you may send a text or an email.
Yeah.
And you don't care when hey, just tell me what it is.
I can't stand that. I make phone calls every day, all the time, and everybody wants to text me. But if you make a phone call, you can get shit done right away. But
Yeah, I like it when I text somebody, hey, what'd you need? For you to answer your dang call.
yeah, right. There you go.
Yeah, so it's different on that aspect.
One thing, on your kind of leadership and management, I still utilize you sometimes on those things. I'll call you for advice. In all transparency, Greg is my stepdad. We've known each other since, 2005 or 6?
4.
2004.
Mm-hmm.
I am a disaster in the corporate environment. I could not hack it. Even in a company of like 30 or 40 when I used to work at my old job, all that politics and kissing the right people's asses and stuff like that, it was horrible for me. That's why I wanted to start my own business. But you have to navigate that world. I've been doing so successfully for 30 years. Has it really changed recently in this kind of new woke culture that we all are dealing with?
Absolutely. I mentioned the pendulum swinging.
Yeah.
And man, it swung hard.
Yeah.
And, and we're a large enough company that we have every walk of life.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what odd subgroup you're part of, we got them. And just to remain, I guess I'd say, professional and respectful, and to remember not to say things that would be hurtful. And not that anybody would say them on purpose, but the rules keep changing.
Mm-hmm.
I need a flow chart some days.
Yeah.
To figure out.
Just trying to figure out what it is.
Yeah. And so the whole thing is you got to love people to be in the corporate world.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, it's going to be very challenging. And if you try to work on an island, it's very challenging. I always say it takes all of us to do the job because each of us has our different skill set that we can add value. What I don't do well, you may very well. We joke about math. You're my math guy. I'm not.
Yeah,
you know.
enough.
But like with people, I probably excel in that where you may not as well.
You know, I've struggled with that. I think I've gotten a little bit better, particularly as I've, had to get new clients and stuff. I'm real good at talking about accounting and stuff, but that kind of interpersonal work relationship, I still really struggle with. I struggle with talking to my employees about their mistakes and trying to help them along. It's tough to have employees. It's tough to have people work for you and have those different management styles, which is something that you've actually told me before, which is extremely helpful, that you once said you kind of have 8 different management styles for 8 different people.
Because they're totally 8 different people.
Yeah.
I have on my team now, I have somebody that was just turned 21,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a guy that's 63 years old.
Yeah.
I can tell.
Wildly different people.
Yeah. And cultures, genders, you name it, I got it. Sexual orientation, they're all on my team.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the folks, I can say, hey, you screwed up. You go, okay, how do we unscrew it? It's
Mm-hmm.
easy. Where I may tell it to another young lady, hey, tell me your thought process on this. And we'll lead her through, and she'll go, oh, I think I made a mistake. Because
Mm-hmm.
if I did the same thing with, hey, you screwed up, I'd probably get tears.
Yeah.
And that doesn't help. And so the way you do that is getting to know your people.
Yeah.
If you just know you as Scott, but you don't know Scott in the background of Scott or some of your family or dynamics, it's very challenging. So you got to get to know your people.
How do you walk that line between kind of getting to know them as a manager without necessarily becoming like their friend? That seems hard.
It is. I use the phrase, and somebody said I drank too much Kool-Aid, but you manage processes and you lead people.
That's a great one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So when I say that, I manage the day-to-day process, but I lead people. And when you do that, you have to have that human connection. Because if you don't, it's going to be challenging because now you're managing people and people do not want to be managed.
I really lean into that. If we've made a mistake, it's not necessarily the person, it's the process that we have that needs to be adjusted.
I hate a few words. It's I, me, or my.
Yeah.
I hate those words. So, for example, if you go, well, my business and here's what I expect, I like to say, well, our operation here's our expectations. And it's not so, I guess, demeaning, and you get more buy-in. And so I still struggle when I hear new leaders say that, and it's just like, oof. Yeah. Because then you see I watch a lot of nonverbals. I'm a people watcher, and fair or unfair, I see people's reactions. And so you go, ooh, that didn't go so well because you saw the reactions. They don't have to say it. And a lot of times if we're in a meeting or something and I'll see a unique reaction of you, hey, Scott, can you hang around for a second? And I've had to learn about that too because Scott goes, oh, what'd I do?
Yeah.
And it says, hey, you available? Oh, what'd I do? Available for a quick call, no rush, no worries.
Yeah.
I had to do that because, in the fast-paced environment, when you communicate, sometimes you got to remember it's not for me to interpret what I said. It's for you to interpret what I wrote down or said.
Right.
And that's what's learned that one several years ago because I was maybe say things that there was nothing wrong with it, but it was perceived differently.
Well, let's kind of shift gears. In your job dealing with disasters, I'm sure you have to deal with just a headache of people and probably some pretty grim stuff. I think I remember when Katrina happened, I had known you, and that was just a nightmare, I'm sure, dealing with such devastation. So at Turtlesmith, we really give a shit about mental health and self-care. Does your organization offer some type of, mental health care or self-care and those kind of things?
Yeah, you mentioned Katrina. We had an on-site counselor.
Yeah.
Just for us. Back in the day, they had somebody come and give us a big, lecture or presentation. First responders always get all the recognition. They go out there, hey, this is devastating. They're doing the search and rescue, and that's fire, police, whatever. But then we go out there, and we're out there for months after. And what psychological toll does it take on us? Mm-hmm. And something I learned over time is just because it doesn't bother me doesn't mean it doesn't bother somebody else. So we're an on-site counselor. And then also in today's world, you can get online and chat with somebody, or you can call somebody. And that's not only on mental health for stress, anxiety, whatever, depression. You can get for legal advice, marital advice, whatever advice you need, they have somebody they can link you up with. And it really helps that part of it. That's something I always worry about. When we do that devastation like Katrina, right now I'm working tornadoes. And I said, if it doesn't bother you, you shouldn't do the job.
Yeah.
But you can't let it bother you enough, you can't do your job. And there's tears in driveways, man hugs, whatever hugs you want in the driveway.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people have lost loved ones and lost everything they don't know where to go. And so I've been able to separate in my head, that's just stuff, property. I don't get, because I've had some outsiders. In fact, my wife, your mom, come and saw kids' toys. Mm-hmm. And she goes, oh my God, there's kids' toys. And she started to cry. I said, no, that's just property. Don't tell me any different.
Yeah.
I don't personalize the devastation. And sometimes I'm wondering, okay, why doesn't that bother me more than it does? And it does bother me. But again, I guess I push it in the back of my mind so I still can do my job. And in leadership, I have to lead others through that process mm-hmm. and help them, guide them, because we've had people, grown men cry.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's challenging. A lot of just different stuff you see.
Kind enough. Do you have any personal self-care or mental health tips that you could give to people maybe that are dealing with that kind of devastation? I know you talked about separating, kind of your thoughts on, that's just stuff, it can be replaced, but any other tips you might have?
I always use an analogy. I was working with a particular customer one time, and he had lowered his insurance limits on his house from $1.6 million to $600,000. Thought that was a great idea to save a little money.
Yeah.
You know what happens? Tornado destroys his house. And he was mad at the world. Mm-hmm. His wife and their small dog were underneath the stairwell and survived the tornado. Mm-hmm. Finally, one day I said, hey, you need to look at this young lady right here. I can't fix people, but I can fix your things. But I have limitations. And that's what turned his mindset around. Okay, I'm fortunate I still have my wife. Now let's think about getting my house back to where it was. But I think you have to, I see people play guitars, see board games. Sometimes there's unhealthy habits.
Yeah.
Drinking or whatever. But what I do is I don't sit in my room. A lot of us will go out and sit by the fire pit in the back of in the courtyard as far as the hotel. Mm-hmm. We don't have a swear jar. We have a work jar. If you talk about work, costs you $1.
Oh, fair enough.
And then 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock is wife time.
Okay.
And I tell everybody to do that. I still talk throughout the day, but 9 o'clock we'll call. She may, hey, did you pay that bill? Hey, we need to replace this. Or we may just shoot the breeze. Hey, what's going on in today's world? And, stuff like that. So just to separate yourself from your own mental health is what I do. I need to do a better job because I'm not always successful. Because it's, like I said before, it's hard for me to unplug.
I can imagine that's a very stressful deal. You have to get yelled at probably by very upset people. And like you said, dealing with them on the worst day of their lives.
I always say, nobody's having a good day when I show up.
Right, yeah.
And I always joke that I give my employees a thorough opportunity to piss somebody off before I talk to them.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, anything else you want to add, man?
You mentioned about small business in the event of a disaster. So,
oh, yeah.
So always have a contingency plan. And so what happens if you lose power to this building and it's not going to be on for 2 weeks. What's plan B?
Yeah, I don't know that we have a good plan B, but now after talking to you, I think we're going to have to establish a contingency
Well,
plan.
is it you go rent some space, or where you can go to a hotel conference room, or you can work virtually, whatever that may be. There'll probably some stuff be written down about that.
That's a fair point. I mean, I can probably do most of my work from home if I had to, but not having an office space to meet with people is tough.
Yeah, and you got other employees. Do they have the equipment to go work from home?
Definitely not. It'd
Yeah,
be a
so that's just a
quick
thought.
run into Office Depot to get everything.
Yeah. So, but you and 1,000 other people,
Right, yeah.
then you have a shortage. So, and then also just there's a term my mom taught me. You can become insurance poor.
Mm-hmm.
You can have insurance for everything for that day that may happen, but you're paying so much insurance you can't live.
Right.
So
you got to find that line.
Yeah, we were speaking about earlier about I call it director's liability.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that's through a commercial policy. Do you have enough? It's called inland marine for your stuff inside your office.
Why is it called inland marine?
It goes way back from the old shipping days.
Yeah,
because you have marine in transit, then it's inland marine.
Because I do have an inland marine policy on some of the stuff that we have here.
Your furniture, your computers, the equipment we're using right now.
Right.
And director's liability or liability. What if you make a mistake and somebody sues you? What if your employees, are they covered? Things like that. And then, just the core basics. Now, in your case, you don't own the building, so you own everything else in it.
Yeah, I have a renter's insurance policy with an additional inland marine deal. So.
Yeah, it's a commercial tenant policy probably.
Right, yeah.
But that also helps you with additions and alterations.
Mm-hmm.
This room, you've added walls, you've done stuff. So that would be covered if this building was destroyed. They'd pay you the money that you put that back in there too.
Oh, that's fair enough. We should definitely look at that. We also had to get some insurance for Tiffany because she's an attorney.
Right.
So we had to get it specifically through like the Bar Association or the Oklahoma Attorney.
Yeah, it's almost like malpractice for attorneys.
Yeah. She was real nervous. She made me get that before she'd come
Sure.
work for me.
I mean, that's just, I call it CYA.
Yeah.
And in case something bad does happen, you hope it never does, but that could ruin a person's business, especially a small business.
Fair enough. Anything else to add, man?
I think we're good.
Well, we sure appreciate you coming on. You can find this at turtlesmith.com and all of our associated social media. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you.